Welcome back. Today, how one man failing a test turned into the bloodiest civil war in human history. Over 20 million dead. Let's begin. It's the 1830s in southern China, under the Qing dynasty. And to become somebody here, you had one path, the imperial exam. Pass it, and you became a respected government official for life. Fail it, and you were nobody. And it was brutally, almost impossibly hard. Enter our man, Hong Xiuquan, a poor but bright young village teacher and the pride of his hacker family. Everyone was sure he'd pass. So he traveled to the city, sat the exam, and failed. Which was normal. Most people failed. So he studied harder and tried again. He failed again and again. 4 times. This brilliant young man was told, "You are not good enough." And on the 4th failure, something broke. Hong suffered a complete mental and physical breakdown today. Ilian refined in Monstic history filmed Harfinus. Hong suffered a complete mental and physical breakdown. He was carried home in a delirium, and for days he lay in bed, burning with fever. And during that fever, Hong Xiuquan had a series of vivid, terrifying dreams. Dreams that would eventually kill 20 million people. He dreamt he was carried up to heaven. There, a golden-bearded old man in black robes gave him a sword and told him to cleanse the world of demons. A middle-aged man was also there, who Hong called his elder brother, and who helped him fight the demons across the sky. Then Hong woke up. He was confused, but mostly he went back to normal life. And the dreams sat forgotten for 6 whole years. Here's the twist that changes everything. Years earlier, Hong had been handed some Christian pamphlets by a missionary. He'd never actually read them. Now, 6 years after the dreams, he finally read them. And in those pages he found God the Father and God's Son, his elder brother, Jesus. And Hong Xiuquan connected the dots in the most consequential way possible. The old man was God. The elder brother was Jesus. Which meant he, Hong Xiuquan, was the literal younger brother of Jesus Christ, Son of God, sent to earth to destroy the demons and rule. Now, a claim like that could get you into a lot of trouble, but Hong was completely, unshakably sincere, and weirdly, convincing. He decided the demons he was meant to destroy were the idols of traditional Chinese religion, and the ruling Qing dynasty itself. This did not make him popular with the neighbors, so Hong and his first followers went west, into the poorer, wilder Guangxi province, to preach. There, his cousin Feng Yunshan did the real work, quietly building a congregation called the God-worshipping Society. It grew fast. Poor farmers, miners, outcasts, and the persecuted hacker minority flocked to him. To people with nothing, Hong offered a heavenly kingdom. Thousands joined. By 1850, the God-worshippers were tens of thousands strong and heavily armed. The Qing government finally noticed and moved to crush them. Big mistake. In 1851, the God-worshippers crushed the Qing forces at Jintian, and Hong made it official. He declared a new state, the Heavenly Kingdom of Great Peace, the Taiping Rebellion, and named himself its heavenly king. To run his new kingdom, Hong appointed a set of subordinate kings, each ruling a direction of the compass. This roster matters. Remember them. The most informant firewood salesman, sharp, ruthless, and staggeringly good at running an army. And Yang had a very special talent. He claimed that from time to time the voice of God the Father would descend and speak through his mouth. When Yang spoke as God, even Hong, the son of God, had to kneel and obey. Handy trick. File that away for later. With their kings in place, the Taiping did something bold. They stopped hiding in the hills and began marching north toward the heart of China. And they were unstoppable. Their numbers swelled into the hundreds of thousands as whole towns joined them on the march. These weren't just soldiers. Whole families marched together, men and women in separate divisions, in a strict, disciplined, holy army. In 1853, they reached their prize, Nanjing, one of the greatest cities in China. They stormed it and took it. Hong renamed it Tianjin, the heavenly capital. The Taiping now had a capital, an empire, and control of the rich Yangtze heartland. At its height, the heavenly kingdom ruled maybe 30 million people, and it was, to put it mildly, a very unusual place to live. The Taiping banned opium, gambling, alcohol, tobacco, and prostitution. They banned the torture of foot binding, radical stuff for the era. They preached that all people were equal brothers and sisters under God. Land was to be shared. Property was to be held in common. On paper, it was a radical utopia centuries ahead of its time. In practice, it was a strict theocracy with some very odd rules. The strangest rule, husbands and wives were forbidden from living together. Men and women lived in totally separate quarters, even married couples. Everyone except, conveniently, the heavenly king himself, who lived in an enormous palace with a very large harem. Rules for thee, not for me. Because as the years passed, Hong Xiuquan did less and less actual ruling. He retreated into his palace to write religious poetry and pray, which left the real day-to-day power in the hands of the man who actually ran everything, Yang Xiuqing, the East King. And Yang was ambitious. Now the Taiping had a real shot at toppling the Qing entirely. So they launched a northern expedition to take the imperial capital, Beijing itself. But Beijing was 1,000 miles away through hostile territory, and freezing northern winters the southern rebels weren't ready for. The northern expedition froze, starved, and was eventually wiped out. Beijing survived. The Taiping had overreached, and it cost them their best troops. Meanwhile, the Qing court in Beijing was in a full-blown panic. The young Shenfeng emperor watched his empire being torn in half. The regular Qing armies were corrupt, lazy, and losing badly. The dynasty needed a savior. It found one in the unlikeliest man. A stern, bookish Confucian scholar official named Zheng Guofan, not a soldier at all, a librarian's idea of a general, and exactly what the Qing needed. Zheng did something new. He went back to his home province of Hunan and raised his own army from scratch, loyal to him, drilled with iron discipline. He called it the Shang Army. It was smaller than the Taiping hordes, but tough, motivated, and it would grind them down for the next decade. But the Taiping's real enemy in these years wasn't Zheng Guofan, it was themselves, because inside the heavenly capital, a power struggle was brewing. Remember Yang Xiuqing's magic trick, speaking with the voice of God? He'd been using it more and more to control everyone, including Hong. Whenever Yang wanted something, God would conveniently start speaking through him and command it, and no one could argue with God. He even used God's voice to have the heavenly king publicly scolded, and once to demand Hong be punished with a beating. The Son of God, beaten, on God's orders. Hong endured it, seething, but everyone could see it. Yang Xiuqing was the real power now, and he was getting greedy. The final straw came when Yang, through God's voice, demanded to be given the same title as Hong himself, to be a co-equal king of heaven. That was too far. Hong Xiuquan decided the East King had to die, and he sent a secret message to another king to do the deed. The man he summoned was Wei Changhui, the North King. Ambitious, ruthless, and more than happy to take out his rival. This would not go cleanly. In September 1856, Wei Changhui marched his loyal troops into the heavenly capital at night and went straight for Yang Shouqing's palace. They stormed in and killed the East King in his own home. But Wei Changhui did not stop there. Not even close. What happened next is called the Tianjin Incident, and it broke the Heavenly Kingdom forever. Wei decided to wipe out everyone loyal to Yang. Over the following weeks, Wei's men hunted down Yang's followers, family, and officials across the capital. The killing spiraled out of all control. By the end, an estimated 27,000 people were dead, killed not by the Qing, but by the Taiping's own leaders turning on each other. And it kept going. Hong, horrified at the monster he'd unleashed, now turned on Wei Changhui, the very man he'd ordered to kill Yang. Wei Changhui was executed. In the span of 2 months, the Heavenly Kingdom had destroyed 2 of its most powerful kings and tens of thousands of its best people. The last capable original leader left was the young, brilliant, and beloved Wing King, Shidakai. Everyone hoped he could hold it all together. But by now, the paranoid Hong Xiuquan trusted no one. He surrounded himself with his own useless relatives and grew suspicious of Shidakai too. Fed up and fearing for his life, Shidakai did the only thing he could. He gathered his loyal troops and simply left the Heavenly Kingdom for good. He wandered Western China for years as an independent force, until he was finally cornered and captured by the Qing, a tragic end for the best of them. So by the late 1850s, the Heavenly Kingdom had gutted its own leadership, and on the outside, Zheng Guofan's Shang army was closing in. But the Taiping were not finished yet. 2 new leaders rose to give the Heavenly Kingdom one last, brilliant second wind. First, Hong's own cousin, Hong Rengan, from something Ray, from more from actual modern ideas. And second, a genuine military genius, Li Xiuchun, the loyal king. He would become the Taiping's greatest and most honorable general. Li Xiu went on the attack and won a string of stunning victories, smashing Qing armies and even threatening the great trading city of Shanghai. And Shanghai is where this Chinese Civil War suddenly became international, because Shanghai was full of rich Western merchants. And they got nervous. The Western powers had trade deals with the Qing. A rebel victory was bad for business. So Britain and France decided to prop up the dynasty. They funded a mercenary force to defend Shanghai, grandly named the Ever-Victorious Army, first led by an American adventurer, Frederick Ward. When Ward was killed in battle, command passed to a British officer with a flair for the dramatic, Charles Gordon. History would call him Chinese Gordon. Famously, Gordon led attacks armed with nothing but a small rattan cane, which his men called his magic wand of victory. He was very confident. With modern Western weapons and training, the ever-victorious army and Zheng Guofan's forces began methodically retaking Taiping cities. The Taiping fought brilliantly under Li Xiucheng, but they were being squeezed from every direction, and slowly, painfully, they began to lose ground. And back in the heavenly capital, the man at the center of it all, Hong Xiuquan, had almost completely lost touch with reality. He no longer issued real orders. When his generals begged him for a strategy to save the kingdom, He told them God would send a heavenly army to defend the city. The heavenly army, it will not surprise you to learn, did not arrive. And by 1864, Zheng Guofan's forces had surrounded Tianjin itself. The siege choked the city. Food ran out. Inside the walls, the people who had followed Hong to build a heaven on earth were now starving. And here the story of Hong Xiuquan reaches its strange, grim end. As the city starved, Hong refused to eat the demon food of ordinary grain. Instead, he declared he would eat only manna from the palace garden, which in reality meant weeds. He ordered his starving people to do the same. In June 1864, weeks before the city fell, Hong Xiuquan died, likely from illness and eating those weeds. The heavenly king was gone. With Hong dead, his teenage son was named the new heavenly king. He inherited a starving, surrounded city with weeks left to live. No pressure. In July 1864, Zheng Guofan's Shang army finished digging tunnels beneath the Great Walls of Tiang and packed them with explosives. They lit the fuse. A huge section of the ancient wall erupted, and the Qing army poured into the heavenly capital. What followed was one of the most brutal sackings in history. The Qing showed no mercy to the holy city that had defied them for over a decade. Li Shoucheng, the loyal king, made a desperate last effort. He put the teenage new king on his own best horse and tried to smuggle him out through the chaos. But they were caught. Li Shoucheng was captured by Zheng Guofan's forces, and here even his enemy showed a flicker of respect. In captivity, Li Shoucheng wrote a long, remarkable confession, laying out the entire history of the rebellion from the inside. Then he was executed. The teenage heavenly king was captured soon after, and executed as well. And with that, the heavenly kingdom of great peace was finished. 14 years after a failed exam candidate declared himself the brother of Jesus, his kingdom was gone, and its capital lay in ruins. But now comes the part that makes this more than just a strange story: the cost. Let's talk about the numbers. The Taiping Rebellion lasted from 1850 to 1864, and the death toll is almost impossible to comprehend. Most historians estimate 20 to 30 million people died from fighting, and far more from the famine and disease the war unleashed. Some estimates run far higher. To put it in perspective, the Taiping Rebellion killed more people than the entire First World War. It is, by most counts, the bloodiest civil war in all of human history, and one of the deadliest conflicts of any kind, ever. So how did it come to this? How did one man's fevered dream drown a quarter of a country in blood? Let's rewind the causes. The truth is, Hong Xiuquan's vision was only the spark. The gunpowder had been piling up in China for decades before he ever picked up a sword. The Qing dynasty was rotting. It had just been humiliated by Britain in the First Opium War, forced to hand over Hong Kong and open its ports. Heavy taxes, corruption, opium addiction, floods, and famine had left millions of ordinary Chinese desperate, angry, and with nothing left to lose. To those millions, Hong didn't look like a madman. He looked like hope. A promise that the corrupt old world could be swept away for something new. And that's the tragedy. The Taiping had real, genuinely revolutionary ideas: equality, land reform, an end to opium and foot binding. Ideas that wouldn't become mainstream in China for another century. In another world, the Taiping might have been remembered as reformers. Instead, wrapped in one man's delusion and drowned in the blood of a paranoid civil war, they became a warning instead of a model. As for the victors, Zheng Guofan, the quiet scholar who saved the dynasty, became one of the most respected officials in all of Chinese history. I Fruden the Chi is only Dades and tea. But the Qing dynasty he saved was only delaying the inevitable. It had survived the Taiping, but it was mortally wounded, and everyone could see it. Less than 50 years later, the Qing dynasty, over 2,000 years of imperial rule in China, would collapse entirely. The wound never healed. And the Taiping were not forgotten. Decades later, a young revolutionary named Sun Yat-sen grew up hearing stories of the heavenly kingdom as a boy. He would grow up to help topple the Qing dynasty for good, and some later Chinese revolutionaries would even look back on the Taiping as early hero. So the failed exam candidate who thought he was the brother of Jesus did, in a roundabout and catastrophic way, help change China forever. 20 to 30 million dead. A dynasty broken. A utopia turned nightmare. All of it beginning with one young man and one exam he could not pass. It's easy to laugh at the man who thought he was Jesus's brother. It's much harder and much more important to understand why millions believed him. Desperation makes people reach for any hope they can find. And history is full of ordinary people following extraordinary claims off a cliff. The Taiping Rebellion is the largest, deadliest example of that pattern the world has ever seen, and almost nobody outside China has ever heard of it. Well, now you have, and you'll probably never forget it. History is so much stranger and so much darker than fiction ever dares to be. That's all from me. If this blew your mind, hit subscribe. There's a lot more forgotten history where this came from. Until next time, stay curious.